All right, so what are we doing here, Mr. Ryan?
All right. Well, we're just marveling at James's wonderful investment here.
Yeah, huh?
And how...
and then we're going to talk about the board?
Yeah.
Cross shot!
Yeah. So we're talking about...
It's only an 8 bus, but,
We're
but it's
talking about
effective.
like, cars and real estate and all the money that he's going to make with this, right? So
somebody just texted me. It's my mom. I just saw that on Ustream, you disgusting pig.
Yeah, right. So yeah, so last night we spent some time in here and just put one of James's songs through the console and kind of showed them how I set up a mix and how the automation works and help them kind of wrap their head around the workflow.
Actually, hold that thought really quick. Listen, we're just gonna have to close this. Everybody's welcome to come in for the mixing, but I gotta close the door. The putzes can stay out there. He called me a putz. All right, so resume.
So, kind of put it through the paces a little bit. Show these guys kind of how I like to set up things and work, but also the possibilities for themselves because there's no one way of doing things on these consoles. So it's kind of it. That was last
Why don't
night.
you give us a little 1 minute who you are, where you came from, what your drip is?
From Atlanta, Georgia. I got my start just playing in bands and working a Tascam Porta 2.4 track, a Boss Dr. Rhythms.
Nice, those are good.
Plugging my Rockman in, jamming. And,
Were you doing Boston back then?
Yeah, whatever. I would do everything. I would just actually record all kinds of songs, and that's how I learned. And played in plenty of bands and all that kind of stuff, but always was really interested in the recording side of it. And eventually went to college for all of this. Kind of started out as a different path for electrical engineer and just like hated it. Wanted to do music and took the plunge and went to Georgia State. Got an internship the last quarter of school at a studio called Southern Tracks in Atlanta, which is where Brendan O'Brien did the majority of his work, and there were a lot of other projects that went on there as well. So I interned there for about a year and just made sure I made myself indispensable. And when the chief engineer decided to go freelance, I was there, I was ready, stepped in, and started working on some really, really good records.
What kind of stuff did you guys do there with Brendan?
At that time, that was about 1995 or 6 when I started there. And so the very first record I worked on there was a band called Fishbone. And that was interesting, we'll say. And then right after that, it was Pearl Jam No Code. And it was a trip, you know, just having a few years before been down at, you know, Jacksonville Beach playing in a cover band, playing Pearl Jam songs, and here I am, you know, with the band and, you know, playing basketball with them and just hanging out. And it's like, wow, this is cool, and everybody's totally cool, and whatever. It's just like any other band. You know.
So were you an engineer or the water boy?
I was
basketball.
I was at the bottom. So I started out as an intern, but quickly kind of moved up to like a second assistant because Brennan's sessions would move really fast, and there's a lot going on, and he just wants things to be a well-oiled machine. And so I was able to kind of get in there and become a part of the whole process pretty early on, which was cool. And so after a year's time, was able to, you know, become the guy at the studio. And between him and his main engineer that he used since the first SDP record was a guy named Nick Dia. And so Nick worked with him all through the 90s and on through, you know, this past 10 years as well. And so I was then working with those guys, and kind of that got me, you know, off the ground and running, and just watching how they did things and learning how to make records really, and what's important and what's not important. So that's where I would say most of my approach, you know, came from, was just being involved with those guys. So
what kind of stuff you've been doing lately?
Lately, been doing a little bit of everything, you know. I worked with a producer named Josh Abraham, and he started a publishing company a few years ago, and he's done really well with that. But a publishing company and writers, that a lot of times that means you're doing a lot more pop sort of stuff too, which was kind of neat for me. So you know, anywhere from, you know, mixing a Deftones record one day to, you know, mixing, you know, some new pop thing for Leighton Meester another day or something. It's just, you know, all over the map. But that's kind of cool to me, to not be pigeonholed into just being one kind of thing. I don't want anybody to say, oh, that guy, he's a metal mixer, you know, that's all he does. You know, I want to be a guy who makes things sound good, you know. And like, so that's it. So.
And you did 30 Seconds to Mars.
30 Seconds to Mars. That's kind of out and still going, and is doing pretty well.
And you got the new Paramours out.
It's the new Paramore song that's in the Transformers movie and everything, and mixed a couple songs for those guys. That was my first time working with them. It was really cool, really good band. And just mixed a band called Black Veil Brides, which came out on.
They're on my. I just bought that iPhone today.
Oh really?
And they were on the cover. Like as soon as they turned the iPhone on, like this thing popped up, and it was their record.
Oh cool.
Like it was. It somehow logged in, or it was right on the cover page.
That's cool. It was fun with those guys because they're
kind of like doing the Motley Crue metal.
They're
thing.
into like 1986 hard rock metal and stuff, so it was fun because
I can't identify with that at all.
Yeah.
Everybody, note the headband. Every time I put this on, my wife's like, "Pour some sugar on me."
Yeah. So that was fun to do guitar solos once again. You know, such.
Yeah.
So, what are those?
Well, the reason I wanted him to kind of qualify is, I mean, we're blessed today to have him here, and we spent about 6 hours last night mixing one of my new tunes on the board, and I took it in the car, and it sounds gorgeous and sounds pro and slick and fat and killer, and we're basically going to deconstruct the mix, and anybody has any questions, I'm probably not going to move the webcam too much, so you're going to have to narrate. So if you're looking at a kick and say, oh, it's about a dB bumped at 5K or whatever, just so that if people are watching, I may move it around a little bit, but you know, it's been a long day.
Right.
But anyway, thanks so much, Mr. Ryan.
Sure.
And we got a tune called Cage, and it's all up in automation. Now that Total Recall, everything was already set.
Yeah, it looked like it came back, so I think everything's still plugged in as far as I know.
Yeah. Why don't you want to do a walkthrough of what we've got going on here with outboard gear?
Sure.
We got the 1178 on the drum
Pretty
bus.
simple. Yeah, we have
Parallel.
a 1178 on the parallel drum bus coming back on separate faders. The entire mix, as for the stereo compressor, is just UAPI 2500 James just got. It's really good. It's a different flavor than the SSL compressor. It's a little thicker and gooier, I guess, sounding than the compressor that's on board of the console. So I've been using that for the past couple of years, more so than the SSL compressor, I'd say. And then we got the Lexicon BCM80 coming back as kind of a small vocal reverb plate. Then this is doing a left-right sort of pitch up, pitch down,
The H3000
slight delay, sort of like an early reflection delay kind of thing going on the vocal, which just kind of gives it a little bit of depth and width, I suppose. And the vocal chain has got a Me 1073, or is that a 1089, or what's
It's a 1073, yeah.
That's okay. 1073 followed by an 1176, and then we have the bass, the same bass signal going to two separate channels, and one channel is pretty crushed at 8-to-1 through an 1176. So it's another parallel compression kind of thing going on there. And that's really it as far as inserts. Everything else is happening on the console.
Yeah, I have CDs for sale out in the front in the donation box.
That's it. Merch.
Yeah, selling merch. So that is Charles Ruggiero on drums, Greg Sartiano on bass.
Really? And the rhythm guitar under the solo.
And he's the rhythm guitar under the solo.
Under the solo.
Under the solo. I am the main guitars, and I'm the guitar solo, and the vocals, and
All around cool guy.
pretty much all around cool guy. And Ryan Williams is on the mix.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll deconstruct it.
Sure. Okay.
And if anybody has any questions, just shoot it. Does everybody?
I have a question.
Okay.
What is snare tries?
Trig.
Trig.
So he got, I was showing him, he just got the Steven Slade trigger program.
Okay.
And so we kind of were showing how that works as well, and use it kind of for an ambient thing. But since I use like a room sample in that,
It returns
So you do it
take it back
stereo,
stereo, yeah, and have separate control.
Gives it that
Nice.
fuller sound, pretty much, on it.
Yeah, you know, because the drums are tracked in this room, and it's not a very big room, and so to get a real like decay on the snare, you know, a lot of times I try to get it from the room before reaching for reverb. So, but there are some room samples in the Slate stuff that are just like, you know, just the air of the room, not necessarily the direct drum. So I'll use that kind of stuff for that. So
Use the Zeppelin snare.
Yeah.
and
works out pretty good. So
James, who programmed that? You said it's a MIDI drum?
No, it's just trigger. It's just it's the Steven Slate. It's like the Drumagog, but it's the new thing by Slate. And it actually it's really good.
Someone
well,
played it though with like a drum triggers or?
no, there's a live
It's
kit
it's just
throughout, and this
pow.
is just to accentuate like a room sound on that, and I'll show you what that's like as well. So kind of the way it starts is all the faders are down, of course, everything's zeroed out, route everything the way I want it routed. You can see in the session there are, you know, kick inside, kick outside, and then I also did a track for a sample if I want to use it. Snare top and bottom I put together. So you just kind of route it down the console, and basically the number that corresponds on the output, you know, here from Pro Tools corresponds with what's on the console. So if I assign something to 3 and 4 here, it's going to come up on 3 and 4 in the console automatically without patching anything.
And the console's kind of backwards. Keep in mind,
Yeah,
the console's 1 through 24, and then 25 through 48.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's a guy. The guy that had it before me must have had dyslexia or something. I don't know what's going on. Just
Or
kidding.
mixed with his back to the
Yeah,
console.
yeah. Audience perspective.
Yeah.
But so anyway,
So yeah, that's a little confusing, but
like that.
so yeah, so I just kind of route it out, and
Keeping
you
it
know,
going.
hopefully there's a rough mix in there, and you listen to a rough of the song,
Marco.
and kind of get an idea what that's about. And a lot of times I'll just have that coming up on a separate button where I can always listen to what the band was last listening to, and hopefully, you know, they had input on the rough and really enjoyed, you know, something about it. So try to figure out what's important to them, and then just start building the track. And you know, usually end up spending most of the time kind of getting the drum sound. I found that that's really, you know, a big part of at least rock stuff. You know, getting the drums just to really hit you hard and carry the energy, a lot of the energy of the track. So I spent time doing that, and just kind of going down the line. I almost set things up sort of in the order that I approach them, you know, and I set the session up the same way. So I just start with the drums and work my way to the bass and rhythm guitars and everything else. And generally, as I'm building, you know, tones and EQing, I'll be in NS10s and be up kind of loud for drums and bass, just to make sure everything's hitting the way I want it to hit. And you can tell that you want to mix, and it turns the automation on. So basically, once you say you want to automate things, you just say set up mix, and all these red lights come on, which means every fader is in absolute. It's going to write automation exactly where those faders are sitting for the, you know, length of the song, wherever you're playing. And it's all related to the time code that passes. And so as the time code goes by, it knows that this fader is moving up or down, and it's recording all that information. So it really kind of works just like the automation in Pro Tools works. Once you click on write and you're moving a fader and it's an absolute, it's the same thing essentially. So you do that, you end up saving them as you go, and just keep doing rides. And so each new pass, it's playing back all the moves you have up to that point. And you can go in per fader and just make little adjustments up and down, and then bounce out of automation. That's it. Then you just sit and obsess over it. And then eventually abandon it. So that's it.
All right, thanks everybody for coming.
That's it.
So then automating in Pro Tools also?
I like the paths there for that a lot. And generally, it's just the kick, the snare, and the toms that are going there. Sometimes, if I need a little more energy from the top end of the cymbals, I'll put some of those there too. Rarely would I send the rooms with the hat or ride to.
All right, and then do you use several groups of buses, stems for different elements, drums, guitars, vocals, which you kind of talked about the VCAs. Do you also patch dedicated EQs and compressors on these buses?
No. I'm generally, well, the groups I'm using aren't really audio groups where you patch EQs or compressors. They're just level controls for whatever's assigned here. So I don't really have like a guitar sub that I do.
Okay.
I just have individual faders with guitars, and each one of them gets their own sort of attention as to what I think they need. Because you could have 6 different rhythm guitars, but they all might need something slightly different. So I wouldn't approach them as one thing generally.
Well, what do you use as a DS or hardware or software? Which one?
Most of the time it's software.
Just the Digi one.
Yeah, the Digi one's good. I mean, the Waves R compressor's good. This another one from some company, Elosis or Eosis. It's like an E2 or something like that. I heard that one. It's really good. There's a lot going on there. I don't understand it all. It's like you hit a preset and it usually sounds good.